Hello everyone, welcome to the Mobility Academy show, the only show where I'm going to interview for you guys the most amazing people from all over the world to discover the flexibility secrets and learn more about flexibility training. I'm the flexibility guy, Coach Elia, and this is the Mobility Academy show. Hello everyone, welcome to the Mobility Academy show. Look here who I have today. I have Farid from London, directly from London. He is a movement coach, a really good movement coach and practitioner. Hello Farid, how are you? Thank you so much for being here. Let's introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I've been watching your stuff for a while now, and it's been it's been a while since we've been sort of on Instagram connecting, and it's cool to finally meet you. So, yeah, I'm based in London. I teach movement here. I help people basically to move better, whether that's increases in strength, flexibility, mobility, and also I've worked with companies and big corporations and done all sorts of work with movement that's basically my my full-time job is working with movement in many different forms essentially.
Yeah, and this is like why I'm going to ask you this first question. So you are a movement coach, you're a movement practitioner, so you do a lot of disciplines, so you do acrobatics stuff, you do hand balancing, you do strength training, you do flexibility training, mobility training, etc. You want to be able to move your body in more than one single way, so you need to be able to have a good level of flexibility as well, of mobility as well. So since you do that, what you think about flexibility and movement? So do you need a lot of flexibility to practice the disciplines you practice? So for example, the acrobatics, etc. And how much flexibility can help you achieve a better performance or a better movement skills?
Cool. There's quite a lot to unpack in there, so we might have to bounce back and forth with the original questions. So how much flexibility do you need for movement? It sort of obviously depends on what you're doing. I'll speak for myself just because it's a good reference point. So when I started, I was into gymnastics. That was kind of my main gateway into the world of movement. And so for that... and inside of gymnastics, I was into the floor routines, so mainly tumbling, that kind of stuff. And for that, I didn't really need that much sort of passive flexibility. I could get away with dynamic, if I could kick high and my leg was able to express a range of motion rather quickly inside of a short window of time, that was enough. So I actually, and then after gymnastics, I got into parkour, which again is more ballistic, more explosive, and it actually is about tightening and gripping and strength. So the explosive dynamic flexibility for me was a big part of my natural progression through movement. And at the time I wasn't really aware of it. It was just happening to my body, and it was only after I stopped those kind of practices that I started to realize that I couldn't actually hold end range positions for very long. And I thought to myself, I'm actually quite inflexible. I felt very stiff, but I could use it in a very dynamic way if I needed to kick or lunge or jump. So do you need it? Not necessarily. Depends what you're doing. Sometimes being overly flexible or even hypermobile can be a detriment to your practice. Especially with things that require a lot of impact and force and a kind of return to center. It can be a detriment and it can make things more difficult. So it's a little bit like... I don't know what the analogy would be, like tuning your car so that it functions perfectly for whatever it is you're doing, whether that's like full-blown racing or whether it's long distance. You kind of have to tune your body to the activity that you're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's really the importance of flexibility is not necessarily whether you can do the splits or whether you can do X, Y, Z, is have you tuned it well for what you need to do? I think that's quite an interesting concept, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a value. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that it really depends on what you're doing and what you wanna like express with your body. So, for example, you said that you started with gymnastics and parkour, and maybe there I think that the point here is that you had the correct amount of flexibility to perform your skills.
Exactly.
But if you like weren't in that kind of situation, you would surely know that you needed to stretch more to get more flexibility, or I don't know
exactly.
what. So to work more on your flexibility. So this is your like personal experience on that. But I think that maybe you worked a little bit on your flexibility, maybe during your warm-ups or during, I don't know, your tumbling classes, in between the sets or something like that, just to maintain or gain a little bit of flexibility that was really useful for your skills in that particular moment.
Exactly, yeah. At the time, I wasn't interested in flexibility in and of itself. When we had to do the warm-ups at the beginning of the gymnastics class, it was like, we just want to get through this, it's not very interesting to us. We, sort of didn't understand the value.
Yeah.
And I found that I had enough for what I was doing, and that was perfect for me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no value in wanting to be a bit more flexible just for the sake of it, because I think being able to be being flexible is a perfectly worthwhile endeavor to chase. And even for really mundane movements and things like picking stuff up or whatever, it is very useful to be able to move your joints well and through kind of a wide range of motion. So it doesn't necessarily have to be dictated by the activity that you do, but if you are in the field of either doing sports or you are into a particular activity, then it would be interesting to look at what that requires, and that can maybe guide you. But the other way is also true. You can also just decide, I would like to be a bit more flexible in general, if you have no clear direction.
Yeah, of course. And then you started with the gymnastics, and then you discovered the parkour, and you shifted to that kind of discipline. And then how you started your movement practice, which I don't know, movement is kind of a really huge word, because there are a lot of activities, or a lot of disciplines in it, and maybe each practitioner chooses his or her own disciplines, the disciplines he or she prefers. But how you choose your disciplines, your activities, what you like the most about movement?
Initially it was it was a mixture between function and fun. So for me, I wanted to enjoy it, so that was a big part. But also, I think the thing that attracted me to a broader movement practice was the function. So I've talked about this before, but I'll just mention it real quick. In my early teens, I saw a clip of it was on the television. It was a clip of Jackie Chan. It was a Jackie Chan film. It was First Strike. And he was essentially moving around, doing all sorts of fantastic things in this scene in order to get away and to escape. And his movement captivated me. And I thought to myself, wow, he is solving a problem with his physicality, right? Like, that's the thing that spoke to me the most. He was, in the film, in the narrative of the film, he was in trouble. And in order to get himself out of trouble, he used his body and he used his movement. And that concept, for some reason, at that ripe young age of early teens, Ellie, I can't tell you why, but it really hit me. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the future, you know. And that's all I thought. I had no other, you know, didn't have a grand plan to do anything. Really. It just, that's... And so the function of it really affected me. And I suppose to tie that into flexibility, in order to move well and in diverse ways, you need to tune, again, like we said, you need to tune and calibrate your flexibility. So the fun and function were two things that drew me to a movement practice.
Really interesting. That's huge, man. That's huge.
Yeah.
So now the second question I want to ask you, we change a little bit the topic here because we get like a little bit deeper into flexibility training because there's what we want to talk about. So since you are a movement coach, first of all a movement practitioner, but you surely you have surely found people along your way who needed to increase their level of flexibility. So what are the main methodologies or your favorite methodologies, your favorite methods to increase someone's level of flexibility? Maybe through a movement practice or with dedicated sessions, I don't know. How you work with that, how you increase your flexibility and the flexibility of your students as well.
So one of the big things that I found that I had to use on myself, because as a result of doing gymnastics and parkour, I actually, in certain ways, I was quite flexible, mainly dynamic, but in other ways I was also quite inflexible. And so for me, the big eye-opener was using weights. That was a big thing that really helped me, and I initially tested it out on myself. I also read Thomas Kurz's books, Stretching Scientifically, which I'm sure you know about.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about PNF in that, and so that was, using weight and a bit of PNF were my first ever sort of concepts into, and almost realizations into there being a method to teach flexibility. So definitely the use of weight is one of the ways that I think it has been very effective for myself and for a lot of my students.
So when you talk about the weights, so you use some kind of weight to achieve a greater level of flexibility. You mean how do you like to go through the stretching positions? So you stay there and you try to relax, you try to gain more range of motion as you stay in the position. I don't know, I always make the example of a split because it's really easy to understand, but it could be every stretching position you can think about. So you are in a split or in a stretching position and you stay passively there trying to relax more and more and more with a weight which is pushing you down, which is something I really enjoy doing, maybe in positions like, I don't know, the pancake or the pike, where the force of gravity isn't sufficiently strong to push my trunk towards my legs, and so I need a weight or someone that pushes on my back to increase the amount of intensity in that stretch. Or you use the weight to dynamically move through stretching positions, I don't know, maybe a squat position, a Cossack squat position, something like that, or also like positions where you use a weight and you move through a range of motion or some flexibility poses, or maybe you do both. You think that.
Yeah, it depends what I'm trying to do. So, for example, if we take the ankle, I tend to spend a bit more time with a weight. Let's say we want to increase. So ankle dorsiflexion, for example, is a big problem in many people, and especially people that want to get slightly better at squatting. Full flat foot squat, if they lack ankle dorsiflexion, that's usually a problem. For that, for example, I quite like to use weight, gravity, and a bit more sort of a passive time under tension holds. with, a little bit of flossing of the ankle. So you'd have weight on top of the knee, try and push it past the toes, and then inside of that, you're slightly moving laterally a little bit to floss the ankle.
Yeah.
That would be one way, just because you're just trying to get sort of linear range. Can I dorsiflex my ankle more? That's all you're trying to do. Whereas, for example, with a pancake, because you might use the pancake position, which is the straddle position, in a movement context a little bit more dynamically, because you're trying to use it to go in and out of transitions, you might not want to spend so much time passively. And so for that, for example, if I was doing the old weighted pancake stretch, I would mix between doing reps so that you can go in and out with the weight, so that you can then use the motion to go in and out inside the movement context. And I'd usually add a sort of hold at the end on the last either rep or the last set, or depending on what the person needs and how their sort of system is wired, you would tweak it. But if it's something that'll be used in the movement context, I tend to do more of a reps based system. If it's sort of maybe perhaps a more static position, like a resting flat foot squat mobility that someone wants to achieve, then I might use perhaps slightly longer passive holds, still with weight. But again, it all has the potential to vary depending on how finely tuned the person's kind of nervous system is, in a way.
Of course. And you can also use the PNF or passive stretching, etc. with the weight on.
Exactly.
The
you can start making all sorts of cocktails. And all of that will depend essentially on the person you're working with, number one, how they're wired, and also what they want to achieve.
Yeah, a problem many people encounter, in my opinion, in stretching positions is that they also, I speak also for myself, they don't have the necessary amount of pressure on their body to achieve a greater level of flexibility and to stretch more a joint or some muscles. As you said about the ankles, for example, how can you improve your ankles flexibility without a weight or without like putting extra pressure on the ankles? It's really hard, so you can try to stay in a squat, but if the ankle is really stiff, it's really difficult to work on that, because that kind of stiffness, if you stay only with the body weight, it's really hard to go through that kind of range. But if you apply like an extra pressure with which your body like doesn't recognize at first, so you can get through it, you can get deeper into the stretch, you can like learn how the pressure you're applying on your body is increasing your flexibility. And that's true for the ankles, but could be true also for the splits or for the pike. The pike, it's one of those positions that I really see people doing. They try to like reach their feet, and they stay only with their strength, trying to bring their torso towards their legs. But if you apply a kind of pressure there, or you grab a weight, or you pull on something, you can increase your stretch, and you can apply more pressure in the stretch, finding a deeper stretching position. And what you think about now this kind of flexibility practices? So you said that you use a way to stretch, etc., but how you deal with flexibility training inside a movement practice? So could be a movement practice, but maybe people do, I don't know, I do, for example, handstands, strength training and flexibility training, but maybe some people do calisthenics stuff, or I don't know, whatever they might do. But how you deal with flexibility training if you do also other disciplines? So for example, you do acrobatics and balancing, strength training, etc. So how can you work on your flexibility if you do also other disciplines? You try to be selective?
Usually it's a bit of a hurdle, that you need to go over, especially if you're coming. So for people that come to me and say, I wanna move better, can you help me? We would have to address some form of mobility or flexibility benchmark, especially, for example, if they come to me and say, hey, Farid, I really want to do what you're doing, and then they cannot flat foot squat past 90 without falling back. That's a problem. You're not going to be able to express motion well or efficiently or at full range if you can't do that. So then the flexibility training will be at the forefront, and that will become sometimes a hurdle. People don't enjoy it, so they just want to get over it, get it done so that they can do the movement. Well, most of the times, actually, they'll end up enjoying the actual flexibility training in and of itself, and that'll become an enjoyable part of their routine as well. So it kind of has two flavors depending on the person. They can either enjoy it, they sort of have the goal, they want to move well, and in order to move well they need to work on their flexibility so they can express the motion, and they end up embracing that part of the whole practice. Or for some people, they don't enjoy it as much, they just want to get it over and done with, get to a benchmark and then keep it on maintenance but move on to doing other things. Those are the kind of main two flavors that I get. Most of the times actually people do enjoy the training. The good thing about flexibility training, I would say, is that on some occasions there are quite clear benchmarks, whereby before you could only get your fingertips to the floor in a forward fold, maybe now you can get your knuckles or your full flat hand, and so it's quite tangible, and people like having these benchmarks that are like kind of black and white. You are making progress because last month you couldn't touch the floor and now you can. And I think that part of it is really enjoyable, and people embrace that. So more often than not, people enjoy it, even though if at the beginning it's not what they intended and maybe they didn't enjoy it so much at the beginning, they tend to change and enjoy that part of the training. So that's kind of what I found tends to happen.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I completely agree with you about that. It's really something like that. And,
because movement is quite intangible. How do you know if you're good at movement? What does it even mean? It's too broad. You can be put in one context one day and you're good there, then you get put in another context in another room with other people and you're not so good there, all under the umbrella of movement. So whereas what I find with flexibility is it's got quite clear benchmarks. It makes you feel good when you can finally squat. It's got quite clear benefits and it's got a clear lifeline that it sort of provides you. I find.
Thank you so much. I completely agree with you that it's really something tangible. So that you're improving, that you're getting closer to the floor or closer to your legs or closer to your torso, etc. You can move better, you can feel it.
And then you not only you get that benchmark, but also you get people that come back to you, and I'm sure you've had this. Farid, I can finally pick up my phone when it drops without doing 10 moves. It's like, it feels great. Okay. And so it's easier for them to continue, and it just becomes enjoyable.
It's something where you need to have a lot of patience, and that's why I will ask That's why I will ask you the last question of this interview. So the last question is my usual question, but since you are also a coach, you will surely know how to give people 3 tips to improve their flexibility level. So what are your 3 main tips to increase flexibility?
The first one that comes to mind, and I suppose it's not necessarily, it can be used for flexibility, but not necessarily, is to find the minimum workload, the minimum amount that you can do that will still give you some progress. Because if I was to give someone that doesn't want to do flexibility training or thinks he doesn't at the beginning, if I was to give him a full routine with whatever volume I think he needs based on what he's given me, to give him a full routine for him to make the most progress, he might get discouraged. He might look at it and be like, really, you want me to do 3 sets of this followed by this isometric hold plus this? And it might be a great mobility session as far as I'm concerned in terms of the coaching of it. It'll be effective, but he's not going to get through it.
Yeah.
He's just not going to do it. So figure out, either with a coach or by yourself, figure out what's the smallest amount of workload that you feel you're most likely to do. Start with that. And as you get results and as your capacity increases, you're more likely to stay on that horse than you are if you were given the most effective way off the bat from the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and it'll depend because some people are ready and they know what they're getting into, and you can give them the full volume and it'll be fine. Other people, you have to calibrate it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best tips you can give to people. Also, I remember one time it was one of my first live events, and I was there. So a guy came in and asked, "So Elia, what you think about frequency on flexibility training? So how much should I train?" And I still remember that I answered, "Okay, if now I say to you that you need to train 6 days a week for at least 2 hours, would you do that?" Because, I mean, training for 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, could be a really nice deal to improve your flexibility. You will surely get more flexible. But would you do that?
Within a short range of time, absolutely, yeah.
But would you do that? And in that moment, he said, "Oh, I don't know if I would do that. I don't know if I have the time." Okay, yeah. And so I said, "That's exactly the point. If you can't do something, I can give you also my routine, what I do. But maybe this is not good for you. You need to find something that you're consistent with. You need to find something that you can repeat, that you can do, maybe every day, because frequency is important in flexibility training. It's like playing a guitar, you know. If you play a guitar on Monday and then you go and then you play again on Tuesday, you remember all the kind of things you did yesterday. But if you play guitar on Monday and then you replay it the next Monday, you need to you need to do some kind of brainstorming, and the first half of the session you will just remember the previous things before you are ready to improve your skills. So if you can get a little bit more frequent with your flexibility training, it's good. But you need to find, as you said, something that you're consistent with. So great first tip. Now let's see the second one.
The second one is try to connect to the reason that you are trying to be a bit more flexible. Try to really connect to that, because that will likely drive you to continue your training if you have quite a clear reason, something that's pushing you. It's fine to do it for the sake of it, but even inside doing it for the sake of it, try to figure out what it is that you would like to do it for inside of that. So is it to play with your kids more freely? Is it to feel a bit more pain-free, and that may or may not work for you? So figure out the reason for which you are trying to become more flexible, and remember to connect to that. That would be something. That would be something that.
It's really good. Yeah. Your motivation. So
your motivation.
I do that.
Yeah, and if, for example, and you might, we might get people that are quite already that have quite a broad physical practice. So, for example, you might get someone that dances who's already quite flexible, and she might need to become a bit stronger because she's trying to do different, more dynamic movements. So, have a reason to figure out for the reason with which you're tuning your body, and try and remember that as you go along. That usually helps as well.
Yeah, makes sense.
And number three, I think, yeah, don't be afraid to think outside the box. If you're working with a coach, then they would have probably done all the thinking outside the box for you, which is great. If you need help, get help. That's what people like you and I are here for. We've done all the thinking. We can help you out. If you're doing it by yourself, then don't be afraid to use weights. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Either get help or get educated.
I think there are a lot of forms of education nowadays, also online for free YouTube channels.
Absolutely.
I have my own YouTube channel. You have your own YouTube channel where we give away for free. For free. Some kind of really quality information to start learning with. Then, of course, if you want to be more personalized, it's like, okay, I know that I have this ache on my teeth, but I can't fix that on my own. I can try it, but I need to go to the dentist, and so I need to pay the man the money to do that. Of course, there's some form of education, but if you want to apply that on you with a coach or something, then the next step is to be coached by someone like me and you. And I have also a coach who coaches me, and maybe you have a coach who coaches you. That's the basic principle.
It's a basic, because I have seen people that are like, Farid, I need help with my flexibility. I've just been sitting in straddle for 4 hours a day for 2 years and I'm still not getting... Well, you, excuse the language, you shat the bed about 20 months ago when you still were sitting there not getting results and didn't think outside the box or go seek help, or, if you're doing something and it's not working...
Then try,
you got to look somewhere else, think outside the box, either get help or do it yourself. So those are the three things I think.
These are really good, three pieces of advice you gave to our listeners and to our viewers here. So I want to thank you so much for being here for this interview. I've been following you for many years now, and one of my dreams has always been to interview you and to listen your opinions now on flexibility training. But I want to interview another time. Maybe we will talk about other kind of stuff or more about flexibility training, because here I asked you three questions, but maybe in another interview we will get through other questions, and maybe we will answer the questions that people will ask under our YouTube video. So maybe if you have some questions, just write it down below, and we will make another video where we answer the questions, and maybe we get a little bit deeper inside each question or each topic about this initial conversation interview here. Now, thank you so much for being here. Where we can find you? Do you have an Instagram account? By the way, I linked your Instagram account here on the video, but if you have a website or YouTube channel or whatever you want, just tell us where we can find you.
Instagram's a great place. It's at Farid_Herrera. If you link it, then it'll be on the screen.
We'll link
my
it.
Website as well, www.faridherrera.com. And then you can find all the links in there. If you type my name on YouTube as well, my YouTube account will come up. Like Elia mentioned, lots of great information, free information. Just get in there, have a look, drop some questions, comments. We're all here to help you out. So yeah, it was great to also connect with you, Elia. I've also been following you for quite a long time now, probably a matter of years. Seeing your stuff, it's great to connect. It would be great to connect in person
again.
So hopefully, if the world opens up, we can connect in person, and if not, we'll do it again virtually.
For sure. If the world will get better and back to normal, we will surely get that.
That would be great. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sure, with another interview. Thank you so much
Perfect.
for being here, and see you in the next episode of the Mobility Academy show.
Great.